in the Basilica of St. Peter in Rome, opposite the statue of St. Ignatius of Loyola, on the other side of the basilica, the very dramatic statue of St. Ignatius of Loyola is the statue of St. Philip Neri, the founder of the oratory, which is a much simpler statue. And of course, St. John Henry Newman, who we celebrate today, brought the spirituality of the oratory, spirituality of St. Philip Neri to England. And it said that while Ignatius fished with nets, St. Philip fished with a rod, with a line. And so Philip was somebody who was more patient in waiting to attract his fish that he would get, and in doing something new in their lives. And Newman, who reflected very, very deeply on different kinds of spirituality and thought very, very profoundly about which kind of spirituality he wished to bring back to England from his experiences in Rome, in his day, felt that the spirituality of St. Philip, that patient waiting rather than dragging the nets in, Newman reflected very profoundly upon that and brought that as part of his life, as he wished to see how he could move from shadows and images into the truth. Famously, Newman also wasn't terribly impressed with the way that Dominican spirituality was being lived out at that particular time. And so he found that particular moment, that particular time in his life, that the spirit of St. Philip was the one that opened itself to him. And so he was a man of patience, a man of waiting, a man, you might say, of opportunity. And the different opportunities that presented themselves to Newman during the course of his life are ways in which we can see his conversion of heart. Reading his writings, reflecting on his intellectual contribution to the life of the church, we can see that he had, as they say in our first reading, the mind of Christ. But it was his heart that was changed more than his mind. It was his heart that was engaged more than his mind. And it is his humanity that is something that we can be close to today. We know much, of course, about his intellectual contribution. And Pope Benedict, when Pope Benedict preached on the day of his beatification in Birmingham, when we stood there, many of us were there on that day in the pouring rain, Pope Benedict reflected very profoundly on his own personal change of heart, conversion experience that had happened at the reflection on the life of Newman. And the courage to be patient, just like St. Philip fishing with a line to get one fish and to be confident in getting that and in making that change. So Newman, in the spirit of St. Philip, helps each one of us to be patient with ourselves in our own need for change of heart, for conversion, for doing something that is new in our lives, and bringing out from our hearts all of the things that are old, and having the courage to renew and refresh them. There are so many quotations from Newman that can help us to reflect on his life, but my favorite one is one that comes from a sermon on the priesthood. And he said he reflects in that sermon on the fact that the Lord has called sinful, broken men to serve him as priests rather than angels. The Lord, in his mercy and providence, could have sent his angels to minister to his people. He doesn't do that. He chooses sinners, broken people, imperfect people to be his servants. And Newman says, if angels had been your priests, they couldn't have condoled with you, sympathized with you, had compassion on you, felt tenderly for you, and made allowances for you as we can. They could not have been your patterns and guides and have led you from your old selves into a new life as we can, who come from the midst of you. They could not have been your patterns and guides and have led you from your old selves into a new life as those can who come from the midst of you. And so all of us in our Christian calling, all of us who seek to be disciples of the Lord, can take courage from this great saint, about who so much can be said, but that we can start from where we are and have that moment of conversion as our moment of preaching, our moment of opportunity, our moment of change, and patiently, like the man who waits for one line to catch the fish, we can exercise our discipleship in every moment and every day of our lives by beginning from where we are and then waiting patiently for the Lord to demonstrate in our lives something new and dramatic and precious and holy and beautiful that might not be astounding, but what leads us from shadows and images into the truth